So this is actually done on a prime hands-on Bristol. I did discover yesterday when a couple days ago when I demoed on it. When I did the primer underpainting, which is acrylic base, it did kind of ripple the paper just a little bit. You see how bad it is right now. Funny it's on there, and it's kind of sort of rippled a little bit. But when I frame these things, I'm trimming it down to the size of the frame, backing it, and then putting the glass right on it. So it's gonna flatten out. So I'm not too worried. But I packed mostly the papers because takes up far less space than gator boards, which are thicker.
What kind of primer do you use?
Yeah, I'm gonna explain that as I go. Get this taped up.
Recording in progress.
Okay. The primers that I use, and the primer that's on there right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, one of those devices you can go the volume off. Okay. One microphone doesn't give.
Yeah.
Okay, so the primer that's on here right now is a single layer of the gold color that I use, which is Azo Gold, Golden Brand Fluid Acrylic, and Azo Gold. It used to be quinacridone, but all the quinacridones were discontinued about a year ago. They had a formula substitute, and then they just went ahead and made Azo Gold single. And it's in the Golden Brand Fine Pumice Gel. I mix it in there, and then this is what it looks like when it's mixed in. It's kind of an orangey color when it's wet, but when it goes on, it's semi-transparent, so it makes this beautiful gold color. And I learned about this gold color from Susan Ogilvie, who does landscapes, or at least years ago when I took her workshop. She primes all her boards with this, a little bit of a darker mixture that she uses. But I just love the color. It gets a little bit darker on each application, so it creates nice toned. So you get like 2 or 3 different tones of your light values with that gold. Beautiful. I'm going to pass around a couple of other paintings that are already done. Okay. Here's one on Gatorboard, which is my preferred surface. My preferred surface is Gatorboard. It's completely rigid. It's not going to warp or bend anything. Plus, then you don't have to put a backing on your paper when you frame it. It's like all one piece. So I pretty much use Gatorboard. The only reason I use paper is I felt like here I'm packing for a workshop. I have to fly. I want to conserve space. Or I have some paintings that I still need to do a few more for an exhibit in Taiwan that send them unframed, and then they frame them. And I'm probably doing most of those on paper for the same reason, because it'll ship easier. It's like Gatorboard is just as light as the paper, actually, but it takes up less space for the paper. So I'm gonna just pass these around, and you can just take a look. And see, those are completed underpaint. That's with the gold color, and then the darker color is the Art Spectrum brand multimedia primer in the terracotta color. Yes. So that's the darker color. And when I apply primers, I am addicted to these sponges.
Bunch over here of sponges.
Yeah.
Somebody left it.
This is actually
Oh, Rita, do be careful.
Oh, I'm fine. So these are varieties of sponges. This one is actually, if any of you have shipped off paintings to a show somewhere and have used an airfloat art chipping box. This has the perforations. That's what this is. It's the inside foam. This is what I first got addicted to. It's a really nice, semi-firm, sort of not too soft, not too firm. And then you tear it apart and it's this perfect square. And then I cut it. You can borrow some scissors again. Have scissors.
We're gonna have to use our teeth.
Bring them back. I have some in the car. If you're gonna get them.
Check the next room.
I don't even have any pieces cut into the wedge that I like. Somebody left me their knife. I was sitting here for the workshop. Somebody was sitting right here. Oh, okay, I was.
It was Patricia.
But
I could try chewing it.
cut it into a wedge shape, which you'll see in a moment, in a minute. But I like this sponge. It's a nice. It's an open cell foam, but it's not too tight of a foam, and it's not too loose of a foam. I highly recommend trying foam pieces. The advantages that I see to it is main advantage is that I don't have to clean it when I'm done with it. I don't like cleaning brushes. I just don't. It's one of the reasons I'm a pastelist, not an oil painter. So, if you just can't handle the sponge, if you just really hate it, tried it, just use bristle brushes. Whatever works to get your underpainting on. But I underpaint for the purpose of obtaining my values. When I cut the sponge, what I like to use is a wedge shape, not corner to corner, but kind of something that leaves me a little 1/4 inch space on each end. Okay. So what you wind up with is 2 little wedges that have that edge right there that you can paint. I paint with that edge right there. It's about a 1/4 inch wide. And I put in the primer. The back end is for blending and spreading and doing whatever else I need to do. If I have like too much primer there, I need to do whatever with it. You'll see me when I'm working the sponge and I'm doing this underpainting, you'll see me manipulate the sponge in different ways to get the primer on there how I want it. The other sponges I use are a little bit firmer. I'll spread these around too. This one is super firm, and this one is pretty firm also. These are from an online store called Foam Online. And they actually make foam for like mattresses. So they have all kinds of different foam firmnesses and types. And I just ordered like various samples. This is the charcoal foam, which is really, really nice. I really like this. If I had nothing else to order, I would order just this one. But here's another one that's kind of just a little bit less firm. There's another white one that I had. Here it is. Super firm, just really firm. So just pass these around the whole room and feel the differences. Because it's just like having, if any of you paint with wet media, you have various brushes. Those brushes have various purposes, right? When I paint with wet media, I like to use one brush for everything. But you know what those brushes will do. You have your favorite brush. You have your second favorite brush. You know how to manipulate those. So the sponges are kind of like that. So I get how I need to work. I like to use a firmer one for the terracotta because usually I have the smaller details that I'm putting in with the darker values. I work great with questions, so ask me questions anytime if you're curious about something while I'm working this fast. I'm going to get going on this. And I'm going to start with the gold and then work up in a light to dark process. Do my lightest values first, and then my darker values. Whoever left these paper towels here, thank you. Okay, so here's one of these. When I first start, And if you can't, that's nice, but if you can't see what I'm doing, just scoot around somewhere. You're welcome to come up behind me occasionally from time to time if you want a closer look. When I first start, what I'm looking for is all the values that are darker than the lightest light. My lightest light, which is the highlight on that white fur, is going to remain that value, the lightest lights. Now I am going to put some of this in here because there are some variations of tones throughout his forehead. For the most part, on these brightest areas, they're just going to stay that first layer of gold on there. Notice how much primer I'm using. Just a little bit goes a long way. I'm also, for the most part, brushing on the primers in the direction that the fur is going, because that's one of the reasons I like using a smooth surface to start with, because I like controlling my texture. I like creating the textures that I want to have painting. And with the animals, it's furry stuff. And it just works great. These primers being brushed on like this creates that texture. So you'll see I'm smoothing out the nose a little bit more than I did with this stuff. This is fur, this is smoother. So I'm using that back end as that smoothing motion. I didn't really smooth this out because I wanted it smooth. I smoothed it out because there's a little more light on that area, and I didn't need it quite that dark. All the rest of this is going to take terracotta. Even in the places where there are highlights on that fur, because the base tone of that fur, even in the light, is a darker sort of mid-tone. So the terracotta gets that mid-tone value. When I think about the background, just to keep these things simple today, I'm going to do what I call my default background for ranch animals, which is some kind of grassiness over here in the foreground. And it'll get smoother up top. So I'm just going to do that, let that retain some texture. And then up here, because there is some lightness up here, I want a little bit of contrast top of the head. Set off the white fur there. So I'm going to smear in some tone up there that would be like sky. Sometimes you see like there are different values happening on this paper on the initial layer, because I prime these things in big pieces. And I'm priming like this, and it'll only get an area about like this, a big sponge full primer, and then I'll go on to the next spot. And where those are overlapping, it's going to get a little darker because it dries really fast. So in these areas like this, it just like overlaps. Sometimes I'll try to compensate like this. Instead of putting more here, I'm just putting more in the lighter areas. If I feel like I'm going to need more of an even spread of value, I'll do that like that. And that way, this is all even now. If I'd gone over that, also it'd get a little bit darker, like this did here and here. That's, I don't think that there. That's terracotta. Okay, so that's what I consider 2 layers of the gold. First layer that's on there already, and then the second layer. Sometimes I'll go in with a 3rd layer. It dries really fast. That's already dry. So I go in again. I'm gonna get some of this that is a little bit darker. I think some of these terracotta parts that are going to be a little lighter. Sometimes I feel like the when terracotta goes on, it'll look a little different if I'm not going to give it 2 coats to make it solid terracotta. The terracotta primer, the Art Spectrum brand, is primarily opaque, but when it's a fresh jar, like it's a really fresh jar, it was coming out kind of a thinner. Then as it gets a little older, it starts to thicken up. So it did have quite a bit of transparency to it when we were working on it in the workshop. So when it goes over the gold color, it'll have a different sort of look to it. It'll become warmer on more layers of the gold. Like if I spread some thin terracotta over that, it would have a warmer feeling than if I would just spread it over one single layer of the gold. It'll have a different sort of, it's something you should try. See how that happens. So some of this is going to be primarily terracotta, but I might like more of this gold to show and create that warmth seeing, especially like right there section.
Rita, is the terracotta opaque or is it transparent?
It's primarily an opaque product. You can really get pure opaqueness out of it with 2 layers of it. You can get more transparency out of it if you spread it out really fast, thin. And you can get a lot of transparency out of it if you wet your sponge first, which a lot of times I'll do to get another value out of my underpainting. But for the most part, it's opaque. It's much more opaque than this gold. This gold will not get opaque. This gold is transparent because it's mixed with that transparent gel, the pumice gel. So it's always going to be transparent. So that's probably enough gold. I'm just working on a Canson Bristol. It's just like a cheap option for like a nice, I like a nice hot pressed watercolor paper. And somebody in the workshop had shown me like the 300-pound hot pressed watercolor. It's almost like a board in itself. It's beautiful. And I have worked on a really nice watercolor paper, like arches. And I do like that. It's just that I have a whole pad of this stuff at home. I'm thinking, I have to control myself when it comes to buying art stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy any of the good stuff until I use this up. Because it works fine, it's fine. And I like the surface. It has a nice surface to it. Yes. This is just a few more little variations up here. This shadows on this part. Maybe a little more texture happening here. That's probably good. So done with this sponge.
Sorry,
all
the trash cans.
Okay, there was a trash can. I'm just gonna set that there. I like to get into the habit right first. I usually have it taking photos of my process because I never know when I might like to post those pictures of the process of painting. And back when I was personally doing more extensive posting, like on Facebook and stuff, and back when Facebook didn't decrease your reach if you had exterior links. Nowadays, that like if you just don't get me started. If you post a link anywhere outside of Facebook, it's going to decrease your reach of that post. So, but back in the old days, I would always like have progress photos on my blog, and that way I could like post, you know, for educational purposes, post a link to my blog and see progress photos here. Post a link. It would like draw people to my blog. It doesn't really work that way anymore, but I still like to take progress photos. I've still put them on my Patreon. So that's all the gold. I get to the terracotta next. It's a little bit. I get the most of it. I'm so lazy. I don't even like having to like clean off the knife that I'm stirring. But it's necessary. So this time I'm going to use slightly firmer sponge. Did that come back up? Right here. Oh, there we go. This one. Found that I just, you know, firmer the sponge is, the more control you can get because it's less floppy when it's wet. Which so now I'm thinking, okay, where are the dark parts? And I'm actually going to start with the darkest areas. You can already see how there is a little bit of transparency happening with this terracotta. So you can see the actual brush lines. Whereas when it second layer, would obscure all of that and make it completely flat. I like when I'm trying to get some area that I want a darker, more solid base to it. And I'm not going to concern myself over the parts of the drawing that I have in there. I'm not worried about losing parts of that drawing. What's more important is that I get those values where they need to go. I can redraw that eye. I don't want to paint around it. So over here on the dark side, the dark furred side of the press, I'm starting my terracotta with these darker shadowed areas. And then I'm likely going to have a wash of terracotta over this part that's gold. You can really see how pale the gold is when the terracotta starts going in like this. So these areas are going to need to get darker. But when I start with the gold part, when I start with the terracotta, the darker parts, then when this dries, I go over that whole dark furred area again. This will get darker, and this will get a little darker, but they'll get dark. This will end up being darker than that because it already has that layer of terracotta on it. So it just kind of, I've learned these things by doing this, and I've learned how I can get a variety of values in my underpainting in the easiest, quickest way. Have a larger area, you can use more primer. Ignore this little white, there's a little like white bit there that's like from the back of the front leg or from the underside or something. I'm just going to ignore that because it's not important. Way over there on the edge. I'm getting fatter strokes now because I'm spreading this out with that whole edge of the sponge. I started off with that part, getting the primer on, and then I'm like, okay, spread my. This shape is just so versatile. Got like 3 different brushes in one, just depending on what side you use. Before I go and put my next layer of terracotta on here, I'm just double checking all these spaces. Maybe I can get that darkened stroke. Sometimes the small bits are trickier. Dark bits here too. Bit of that going on in grass. I like grass because you can just be really free with it and sketchy and loose, and you never really quite know what it's going to look like exactly, but that's what I like about it. It's good tone. Okay, now I'm going to put in my second coat. You see how now it's getting more opaque and solid. Second coat kind of gets that, takes out that transparency. This side is all shadowed, so all of this will be dark. And then when I'm pasteling, that's when the darker pastel will go on there, because the terracotta really only gets, that's as dark as it gets. it's a mid-tone value. So in the subject, it's representing both the mid-tones and the dark tones. I've decided that first, instead of going over all of this area with a solid terracotta, I'm going to try a wet wash first and see if that gets it dark enough. Doing also a little bit of dry brushing here. See, when you can do dry brushing the same way you would with a regular brush, just when the paint is almost gone out of the brush, it gets a little sketchy. It can be useful. Especially for furry animals. Ah, forgot that edge of the ear, didn't I? Start there. Of course, patterns of colors and tones on an animal like this, unless it's just like a specific breed of some animal that has a certain pattern all the time, it changes. You know, I've seen so many cows with all kinds of different shapes to their, you know, the eye patches, or the whatever, they have spots or something. So you don't have to be exact. If it's not a commission, you don't have to be exact with the patterns. Sometimes I'll tweak things. One time I did a cat that had a spot on the forehead. The forehead was just kind of like a blob that's bigger here and smaller that way. But I just pushed it a little more and made it look like a heart shape. The other time I took a similar photo and turned it into like, I thought it kind of looked like the state of Texas. So I tweaked it a little more and made it look even more like the state of Texas. That one sold pretty fast. All right, see if I can dry brush a little bit of this shadow over here part, because that's a little darker. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the rest of this dark in there with a little bit of a watered down. I didn't always used to be this detailed in the values of my underpaintings. I used to just be flat, you know, gold for the highlights, terracotta for the shadows, period. Like two tones. And that's the easiest way to start. Get used to how to see your values as your base tones. But the more I've discovered about these primes, for these acrylic base primers, is that you can like do all kinds of stuff. And get all kinds of values out of it. So this is a wet, slightly damp sponge, and I put a little bit more primer in there so you can like see on the gloves that it's wetter. And I'm just gonna do this and water down, you know, like wet in all of this area that is a little darker because it's the brown fur.
Now,
Want that base tone.
Now, is that the gold or the terracotta?
This is the terracotta I'm using here. I just wet the sponge and I'm putting in a wash of terracotta with the wet sponge. So that's like a really, I mean, how long did that take? 10 seconds? That's a really quick way of getting that value in there. So trying to dry brush everything, or, you know, in fact, the gold won't even get that dark, even if you build upon layer upon layer upon layer of it. You know, the gold will really only get about that dark right there. So I'm looking, the nose looks a little flat, so I'm gonna see if I can get just a bit of variation here, tone, so it doesn't look quite so flat. And if it gets a little darker than I need, it's not a problem. Some of this over here is a little darker, actually. You have to always remember that rule of light and shadow. Everything in the shadow is going to be darker than anything in the light. So I have some base tones here that are pretty dark. They're as dark as my shadow or darker. So it's going to work better if I go ahead and make these shadow base tones over here on the white fur. Even though it's white fur, it's in shadow. So it's going to work better if those are darker tones there. So I just try to get all my base tones in the underpainting, all the values correct. And then when that's done, it just makes the painting, it makes the pasteling part just much easier. All right, let's see. I think there was one more thing. I was going to put just one more coat of the gold up in the top part of the sky, because right now there is kind of a similarity of value between these light bits and the sky, and I just wanted to push that a little bit more. Even though the light colored pastel I'm going to put up there will stand up, but I find it a little more attractive to have slightly darker at the top of the sky. Okay. The terracotta. It's fun. If you want to come up, well, when I'm done with the underpainting, in this, but I think about those things, and you know, sometimes I'll start with the terracotta, sometimes I'll start with the gold. Usually I end up like this, jumping back and forth a little bit from done with the terracotta part, I think. And so I'm just going to add a little bit more gold where I think it needs it. And you know, there's no right or wrong process. It's whatever you need to do to get the values in the right place. So I'm just going to dip this in here because be quicker than I get. So let me just get a little bit more. See how the gold is so transparent. If it gets a little darker, but it's not a very strong chain. So here's one layer of the gold here, and like here, and then this is 3 layers of the gold up there that I did, but I spread it out. You can really see the difference between that and that. So there's the finished underpainting. Has just enough detail to show where all my values are. Doesn't really have any crispness, except maybe the nose and the mouth, but and I can take questions if anybody has questions about underpainting so far. It's on the wrong setting. It's so high contrast. So. I did once as an experiment only because I did a picture of these pigeons. Pigeons that were fighting over some crumbs on the pavement. The pavement was gray, pigeons were gray, and you know, who knows what color the crumbs were, but and the light was kind of not really sunny. They were sort of mostly in the shadow, but they were ambient light coming from one side. They were over like outdoors.
Like a dark navy.
I just used black and white and gray. I underpainted with grays, black and white and gray. And the whole painting was like grays, only colored grays. You know, pigeons have those sort of like blues and greens and stuff, pinks, and then the little red feet. And so the whole painting was like grays, colored grays, with a gray underpainting. And I love the painting, but I couldn't hang it with my other stuff. It was so different. It's completely out of place, like a different artist painted. So when I took it to art festivals, I had to hang it in the back because it just didn't look right up front. And finally, I ended up just trading it with another artist, an artist that was next to me a couple times. He made these little, called them pocket galaxies. His name is Eric Mort, M-O-R-T. You should look him up. His art is just glass art, and it's, you look into this globe of glass, and you see like planets and stars and all kinds of really. So he traded me a $300 pocket galaxy for that painting. We're both happy. So he loved that painting too. And I just can't get it from. Okay, so when I start with the pastel, then it's dark to light. And first, I usually, when I have like a painting like this with elements of the drawing that got obscured with the underpainting, I do like to get back in there and refresh, see those eyes, refresh where everything is supposed to go. Eye right here. And I learned, do you know that this is a bull cap? This is not a little girl cap, this is a little boy cap. And I learned how to identify most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, there's a difference between a male cattle and a female cattle. You know, between a steer and a bull, or a bull and a cow. When one of my clients brought, like, just I do a lot of the little 5x7 headshots of cows, and I had a Hereford cow, and this was early on, I had titled it Hugh because I just thought it kind of looked like a Hugh. And this rancher bought it, and as I was ringing him up and taking his payment, he said, well, you know, this is a cow. And it took me a couple seconds to realize the cow term is for the female, right? The male cattle is not a cow, it's the female. The male cattle is either a steer or a bull. I was like, oh, okay, well, we can rename her Huella. And I did that right on the spot on the back where I have, like, you know, the title. I added the LLA. And in my files for that image now, it's called Huella. And then when I went home, I was like, okay, how to tell the difference between. But he was a rancher, he knew. And the thing is, it's very similar to humans in that, like, I know this is a bull cap because look at the brow. The brow bone is really wide and overhangs the eyes. It's got a wider face, especially the forehead. And the shoulders are usually like bigger. You can't really tell on this shot because the body's turned, but the bulls especially, you can tell from a cow. But even a steer, sometimes you can tell. The shoulders will be wider. Foreheads will have that wider face up at the top. The females will have narrower faces. Some cows I've seen have really narrow faces. Most of the time, the cows I see are the mothers out in the fields with their calves. But they'll have narrower shoulders and wider, like, I mean, cows don't really have hips, you know, but from the front, you can tell that, like, up here, they're narrower, and then as their legs go down, they get wider. And the male cows are kind of the opposite. They'll have bigger necks and shoulders. And it's just, it's interesting. But this is a bull cap, so when I title this one, I'll have to give it a male name.
Thank you for telling us that.
Yeah. I just thought you really needed to know that. A little bit of trivia there. Guys. That's the important part. So, the dark part of this palette is pretty dark. So, maybe I will start. I'm gonna start with my favorite, one of my favorite brown darks is, my favorite brown is the Giraud number 376, and it's actually burnt matter, but I never call it burnt matter because the way Giraud numbers their work, their paint, their sticks, that there are lots of different burnt matters in the different values. So this is the 376. It's the burnt matter of this particular value right here, and I like it because it's a reddish brown, like almost a purpley brown, but it really looks nice with these primer colors. I like it for extending my value scale. It just works really well. And plus, since it's a cooler brown, not a warm brown, it's not making my shadows too warm. It's starting to cool them down already. So I'll put that in. Let's start with this one and through here.
Rita, do you want to talk a little bit about what happens to the color when you put it on all that form?
Oh yeah, I guess
I don't know. It's a big surprise to me.
I mean, it takes getting used to, because I've been working on these warm colors, that gold and that terracotta, and combined making this like orangey tone. Is literally like the warmest color ever. You have to go super hot, like, super hot orange, something like this to even start to get something warmer than this gold and this terracotta. Everything else on there is going to look cooler. Even if you use you think this is a warm color right here, this orange, it's going to look cooler when it goes on there. If I had to use it somewhere, it's going to look cooler. So I've gotten used to that, and all the colors that go onto these primers, they're going to look cooler. And so to me, it's just an interesting, I guess I've gotten used to it. I don't even think about it anymore. But it is something that people who take my workshop, they discover that. You have like certain color, you think you have a color over here that's going to look right up here in a certain place, and it looks completely different. But you know what? While I'm on that topic, there's an app that people who were in my workshop, I already told you, but there's an app called I Love Hue, Hue. And it's so much fun. It's just a game that you can put on your phone, but it's sorting color chips into the proper order between, like, for example, like a yellow orange down here that's light valued, and a blue green up here. And throughout the rest of these blocks, they'll have mixed up most of them. And you have to sort them and put them where they go. So all these values and the change of the temperature between this color and this color, they all like fit in this place. You have to sort them. And it's hard at first. It's hard, but it really helps if you want to like sort your pastel box by value and temperature, or even value and hue. I prefer value and temperature, but it really helps to be able to identify like where a stick is going to go. And it shows you how challenging that is, and how a color really looks different depending on what it's around. So when I'm putting in my basic, my first pastel colors, I'm still kind of considering this to be part of my underpainting because the terracotta only gets that dark. Where are my darkest values? That's not my darkest value. And this might not even be my darkest value. I might put something a little darker in, but it's getting closer. So this is what I consider. I want to get all of my base values in place before I even start thinking about color. I also like to try, sometimes I don't succeed too well with this, but I like to try to keep my strokes large to begin with. Or as large as the painting size. This is a 10 by 10. So this is like a medium size for me. As large as the size will allow me to keep my strokes as large as I can. And here too, you can get one of the things I learned from Richard McKinley and from Albert Handel. But Richard told us that Albert Handel says this, and then when I took from Albert Handel, he did say this. It says every pastel stick has at least 2 colors in it, and it all has to do with pressure. If you press really heavy, you get the pure color that the pastel stick is. If you press lighter and glaze, you get that color plus whatever's underneath it. So remember that and utilize it. A light touch is a very valuable tool to use. You know, like, so this right here is like a different tone than, say, whether I have this in more solidly. And if I would put it into over a different color completely, it would also have been a different color because it would be mixing with what it's on top of.
So we got a question from Zoom.
Uh-huh.
Would a watercolor dark gold wash in background take the art spectrum terracotta acrylic? Mix watercolor media and acrylic, can you do that? Would that make sense?
I would try it. It sounds like it shouldn't be a problem.
Go for
If you do watercolor though, with no pumice involved in it, it should be on a sanded paper, because otherwise you don't have the grit. You need the grit for the pastel to stick to.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's to a certain extent, watercolor paper can take pastel, but I think ideally it should have a little more grip than that, than just plain watercolor paper. I don't know though, because I don't work that way. I like to have some grip with the grit. Things. Okay, so that's probably enough of that. And then fairly early on, I like to get a myelitis light, just a little note of it somewhere. Maybe this. Some of that here. And notice I'm not putting this everywhere. I'm not taking this all the way to the edges of that area of where that is light. I just want some notes because pastel is best as a dark to light process. I know I can put that there because there's nowhere on top of that that's going to get any darker. So I know I don't have to put anything darker on top of that light, warm yellow, warm white. So it's safe there. So now I have almost my darkest dark. Let's see. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah, there we go. So I have some darkest dark here. And I have my lightest light. I have everything in between. And if you notice, I don't know if you notice, but if you notice when I put that light, warm white in there, all of a sudden, all the other values drop down in comparison. So now the lightest light was not this, it was not that. It's that warm white. And I just took so many workshops from people and classes from people that would say that, get your lightest light and your darkest darkening early. And way back when I was just copying photos, I'd be like, I didn't get it. I don't get it. I know where everything is because it's there in the photo. You know, some of you probably relate to that thought. You don't want to just copy the photo. Come on. Why just copy a photo exactly? You just take a photo, just print the photo, you know? But if you want to capture those values, you know, in a good, accurate way that's, you know, allows you more freedom of creativity, you want to get your lightest light and your darkest dark in. And then I can start working up through the values. So, now I am starting to get like, this is not I'm starting to get my darkest darks in. I do have an eggplant here, I think. Yeah. So eggplant, I think, is my favorite black. It's not really black. It's like very dark violet, but it's very, very dark pastel. Like you can see how dark that is. Might even be able to see how dark that is from way then. Usually eyes have eggplant in them. If the fur itself is a black fur, like this in there, I don't want to put too much of this in the fur because this is not a black fur, it's a dark brown fur. But maybe some bits of it to create more shape and depth. Have little notes of this happening. This looks kind of cool, like this dark, cool shadow on this side. Some of that in there. It's a little more depth. So that's the eggplant. See how dark, rich and dark it gets. This other one is just some kind of dark. I don't know what it is. Oh, bluish, kind of. I don't know, but it's dark. Really doesn't matter. Value is more important than color. I say that so often. And value and temperature make color completely immaterial. Completely, like you don't even have to think about color if you know the value and the temperature of it. And of course, when thinking about value and temperature, you are going to come up with particular colors that are the right value and temperature. But that's like secondary. You know, you can't have a mid-toned, warm color that's blue. It's blue is not a warm color. So, but you know, a mid-tone warm color could be, you know, anything from here to like, you know, anywhere from like, you know, an orange, a bright orange to like a, you know, something like this even is warm. Both of these are mid-toned and warm. One is a little more intense, one is less intense, you know, and something will work. And when you try it in your painting, you think, oh, that works pretty good right there. Or maybe I want something a little more intense. You know, so I don't think of color. I think of value, temperature, and then intensity, like in that order. And then the colors just happen. That's what you're finding. Thing is a color. So this, yeah, so this is a little cooler. This is cooler. It's about as dark. It's a little darker than the Pearl 376, and it's a little cooler. That's why I think of it. That's why I can like look at this and think, well, what color is it? I don't know. It's darker and cooler than the than this other one. So I'm putting it in here where I see what needs to be darker and cooler. And when I think about light and shadow, you always have to remember that the shadows not only all have to be darker than where the light is. If the light is warm, then the shadows are cooler. So keep that in mind. And it's all relative because, you know, they just they could be a lot cooler. Shadows could be a lot cooler than the lights, or they could just be a little cooler than the lights, and it's still going to work. They have to be cool. Cooler and dark. And then what you can also think about, just to add another complexity of thought, is reflected light. When you have an animal, like if I'm gonna make this grass green over here, some green in here. Notice I'm just putting this green value into the parts of this terracotta on the grass that is similar in value. It's gonna look better here than it will like on top of this gold. That wouldn't look so great. I like to stick to the same values. That's why I did an underpainting. So when I put my colors in, I'm going to stick to the values that are in the underpainting of that value. So if I have some green grass like that, it's going to be good to include some of this in the shadows of the animal. Or at least some kind of green. Usually it's slightly warmer green because fur is a warm brown. So the reflected light would probably be a little warmer, but I'll just use this anyway because I have it in my hand. And the value and the temperature are close. So the reflected light from the ground is going to reflect up into the animal on the surfaces that are facing that way. So here and like the upside of the ear, maybe the underside edge of the ear. The value, the places on the animal that are going to reflect the sky or the blue, like you see on the white, especially on the white fur, you really see the reflected light from the sky, and you really see the reflected light colors more accurately. Like this is the side of the face that's here. I mean, it's just kind of straight up and down, but it's catching light from the sky. If you'll notice the chin, the bottom of the chin, that's a lot more greenish because it's facing downward. It's catching that reflected light from the grass. So I just love that. I do usually pump up. Actually, I do always pump up my saturation on my photos before I use them. It just makes it easier to paint. Makes it easier to see those colors in there. All right, where am I? Let me start getting some of those colors in there. So wherever part of that dark to light process is wherever you decide to start working, you have your underpainting, you have your major value patterns in there. When you're starting to fill in one of those areas, say the shadows on the white part of the fur. So you have shapes that have that value in it, that blue, but within that tone, you have some varieties of values and temperatures. So I don't want to just jump into the bright blue and put that in because there are parts of it that are a little darker. So I want those down first. That's where the dark to light pastel process comes from. I mean, I already broke it by putting my lightest light in there. So I didn't technically work from dark to light completely. But wherever you're going to have colors that are overlapping, always want the darker one underneath. Now, I kind of phrase that as a rule. Honestly, there are no rules. If you've ever taken a workshop from Casey Klon, like, he paints however the heck he wants to paint, and he makes it look beautiful. But the way I work, I like to, I think it looks better, a little more successful color layering, to make sure the darker one is under, and then the slightly lighter one on top. And not a very wide range. Like I would not put like a very pale yellowish white on top of this dark shadow. That's not going to look good either. But I don't have to because I already have my underpainting with all the values laid out where they need to go. So that's another reason I like the underpainting. So within those blues, those cool shadows on the white fur, I have some darker bits. I'm going to try to identify like kind of what that is. To me, it looks like a dark sort of warm green, like an army-ish sort of green. Maybe this one down here looks even a little darker. Oh, that might be dark enough. Let's try that. Good. Bits of that. That. So it's one thing I missed. Okay, this is dark. It's a little dark there. I didn't get that in the underpainting. So I'm just gonna fudge it. Since it's such a small area, I'm just gonna lay that in there like that. Too dark right there, but it's okay. It's a small area. It's better to have like, if you get some area too dark and you're like, oh, what do I do? It's too dark. It's okay. You're going to have your dark values underneath anyway. Just add a little more light to it in the next layer. Now you don't want to do that with 5 or 6 layers of heavily applied, but it's better than putting on a color that's too light to begin with, and then you have to put something darker on top of it. That's what doesn't work. So, then maybe that darker blue. I see a couple different blues in there. I have up here. Look, all my pastels up here from the workshop. This might be in there somewhere. Be nice for some of these areas. It's a little light though. It's not dark enough for the darkest parts. So I think I have exactly, this is my smaller box. I have a slightly larger box that I usually take to workshops, but I flew, so I wanted to pack tight. So I do have a really, really nice blue that's like this one, only slightly lighter. That would be gorgeous in here, but so I'm just going to use this other one that's not quite as intense, but I think that'll work well enough right here. Nice value for these bits of the shadows that are kind of dark there. Really see right here. So I'm trying, usually at some point my paintings evolve into like lots of little strokes, like I'm painting all the hairs, and it just has happened that way, and I've just run with it. But at the beginning of my coloring, I like to try to just use the broader strokes, the side of the stick, till I get like all the colors in there where they're going. And then when I refine those and start blending in more colors, little tiny accents, I end up doing strokes like this. And that's just like my stroke style. So you can end up with your own stroke style. Just because I like color harmony, I'm going to put, this is a nice value, it goes with this green. I'm going to put some of this over here in the grass because it's good to have colors in your subject also be in your background. Just like helps so much with color harmony. And then I'll probably have a relative of this color, only a lighter value up here in the sky. This is too dark for up there. Maybe some of this. This is just instinct, okay? I'm just like, it's a nice mid-tone and it's cool, and I'm seeing like kind of a cool highlight, relatively cool highlight compared to here. I'm seeing that over here, so it's kind of like, see see what it looks like. I know it's in the light, so it's sort of counterintuitive to the warm light, cool shadow concept, but sometimes with the dark colored fur, you just get that sort of look where the light like highlights on black. At least this is not a black cow. I didn't want to do black cows with that one today because I usually use black primer on top of the terracotta, or maybe like an ultramarine blue mixture on top of terracotta. I didn't even bring that, but what highlights on black fur. Color is a highlight on black. It all depends on the color of the light, and that can just vary. So really just value is more important than the color of that. You can pretty much use any color you want on a highlight on black fur as long as the value is right. Just kind of like this over here. Throw that in there. And it, you know, it ties in with that. So it's not just the blue is not only just in that spot. Some of that white fur was in shadow. Pick up some of that blue over here too. Just there. So I like standing when I paint because it lets me step back easier than like getting up out of a seat and stepping back. It's dangerous sitting while painting. If you like to work small and tight, sometimes I do, then sitting while painting is probably okay. You're gonna just hone in, you can see the whole thing right here. If you want to get away from it, you just go like this. But if you're, you know, if you have a bigger painting, it's really better to get up and stand back every now and then. See where everything is at, how everything's at. So I'm going to keep on with these blue shadows a little bit. There's the lighter tone in there. It's going to be lighter than this. And this one. This is pretty. Be too light, actually. See how you have to try it on your painting. Be too much of a value jump there. That might look good in the sky. Oh, look how pretty that is. You know, you pick color. You pick a color, you know, and if you've been painting a while, you have a good color instinct. You might pick a color because you think it's going to look right somewhere, and if it doesn't, probably look good somewhere else. Somewhere, maybe. So I like this here. I like this here because it's like almost the same value as that orange underpainting. And I just love the colors. You see, I'm keeping my touch light. So there's plenty of that orange showing through. That's where the excitement comes from. Is when you have the two complementary colors that are interacting together. Just using the side of it so I can get the coverage as quickly and smoothly as I can, because I don't like wasting time. So I'm just going to pull this down. I'm going to let it fade. My touch is getting lighter down here, because down here I'm going to have some other lighter, probably greener color coming up and blending in with this blue. So anyway, that's a nice start, sky. So that I determined was too light for in the shadow. So I'm gonna pick something else that's in between.
Rita, can I reaffirm something you said?
Yes.
So you would use an ultramarine AS fix on top of the terracotta for like a black.
Sometimes it's nice. I kind of jump between these two options. Either the art spectrum black, same as the terracotta black, but terracotta primer, art spectrum. They have a black. They have a bunch of different colors. You should try them all. You know, because you know, if you don't want to underpaint with warm, you can underpaint with anything. Anyway, these are really nice. So sometimes I'll use the black on top of the terracotta, because in the same way that this like This jar is fresh, so it's a little bit transparent on the first coat. The black is the same way. If you put just the black on top of the light gold like this, look kind of a sickly greenish sort of color, unless you give it like coats until it's completely flat and opaque. But if you put it on top of terracotta in one coat, then it has that warm undertone under that black, and it's nice. The other option I like is a ultramarine blue mixture that's this like this stuff. So it's the golden fluid acrylic in ultramarine blue mixed with the pumice gel. So it is a transparent blue. It's just as transparent as the gold. I do use a little bit more of the color, so it's not quite as pale. But you layer that on top of the terracotta, it's beautiful. It's not as dark as the black will get, but it's a really nice, rich, dark color. And you should try it. It's really nice. The only thing about it that I sometimes don't like is that something about either those paints or the pumice gel is a little bit, it's not completely matte. It's a little bit, not glossy, but it has some sheen. It has a sheen to it.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I don't like that in the painting. Because when you look at the pastel painting, if you've got like some darker blackish pastel going over those blue parts, it looks great from like straight on. But if you turn it and get a light reflecting off of that blue, then you get like some weird sheen happening. The pastel is completely matte. Of course, it's pastel dust. But the acrylic stuff has a little sheen. Whereas the black primer does not. The art spectrums are completely matte. So I just have been like going back and forth sometimes, depending on how I think I will like it. So this might be interesting. Try that yellow. This one maybe. Not quite. All right, this will work. This one looks good. This is a blue that's just a little dark, a little bit darker than that. I guess it's like in between. This was the one I had tried. So it's like right in between. And it seems to be working a little better. I like it. I like it for this. So I see this blue is a little bit lighter on this outer edge. Some of these other parts. So I'm already starting to use the tip and make like little lines. Some of these strokes are a little more targeted. Too much of that up there. It's so close to the sky color. There's a lot of that's going to be the white too. I am kind of making up some of these, like some more white fur patterns in with this dark fur in the ears, just because I like a little bit of the blue shadowed white fur in ears. I just think it looks good. Just taking a little artistic lesson there. Okay, so then as this starts to get into that white fur, it starts to get a little bit warmer. It's almost like a greenish or maybe a violety. I've seen in other photos in my experience. I've seen like a little bit more towards the violety, but a lighter then again. So this is more grayish. Might work. I want it a little bit more of a different color cast. I'm sort of seeing a greenish. Let's see. Lighter and green, maybe a minty sort of color. Let me just try this one. Oh, that's too light. It might work at some point. Let me look at these other ones that I've already used over here. This one. Maybe this one?
Is your pastel box organized by value, or that's what it looks like?
Value and temperature. Huh? Some of these bits, this is a little bit of a green. It's kind of the same value as that last blue I just used. Maybe it's a hint lighter, but see some of that in here. Goes up top. Around the edge of this chin, maybe. Here. So I'll just kind of look. I'm sort of trying my best to treat this the way that I treat a much bigger painting. In the bigger paintings, I do use a lot more of the wide edge of the stick, and I make like shapes because I don't want to get too tight like this on a large painting. It won't translate well at a distance. So I'm just trying to keep that sort of looseness. So far, I'm liking it. Hopefully I won't just get so nitpicky with this before the end. How much time do I have anyway?
45 minutes.
Okay, that's good. That'll work.
Well, maybe 30.
Here's, I'm seeing some greenish something in the tones of the. You know what? I think that this ear is not. This ear doesn't come down to there. That's part of a background. I'm seeing it's kind of ambiguous, isn't it? I'm just finding. I thought this was the edge of the ear. But this is the edge.
It swings up.
But okay, I didn't draw it that way. Okay, I didn't draw it that way, but I was seeing something. All's good. Just looking at it now, and I'm like, oh, I should put some of that green like right there. No, just go there. I'm working from photos. You need to kind of look at your painting more than at the photo. Because I like working all around a painting. I'm not done with this yet, but the mouth, the muzzle, the nose does not have any attention yet. So I want to get that color on there because, you know, I've seen people work that they're very meticulous and they grid out their drawing and then they start up here in this corner, they finish that and then we move along this. You know, I can think of a handful of artists already that work like that and they're fabulous, just fabulous art. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's so many different ways of working. The way I like to work is like to see the whole thing develop simultaneously, because in my mind, the painting at some point is going to take control. And I've done paintings like I just described where I've painted it all out. My brain can get super tight. So I've been spending the last 2 decades trying to loosen up. This is how I do it. I make sure that the whole painting is developed all at once, because everything that's in there is affecting everything else that's in there. And every part is affected, you know, affects all the other parts. So, you know, I won't know what kind of attention that nose needs if I build up everything around it and then I end with the nose. It doesn't make sense to me. So I want to see what's going on there. Some subtle values, different values and temperatures. There's some, the darkest part is kind of a reddish, reddish. Oh, probably like a violety kind of red. And see if this one will work. So, well, it's almost frontlet, except for that side. But there, the inside the nose is actually quite red. It has a really dark red. Just get a snag of that in there. Okay. The other nostril has just a hint of something darker. Just a little edge up underneath. I'm gonna get too nitpicky detailed with the nose because none of the rest of the painting is very nitpicky yet. But it's almost the only place that I will soften and blend on an animal is the nose. Noses are soft. So when I find the right colors in there, I think the bottom part is compared to what's on here. This is we're very orangey. Compared to that, this is almost like a peachy, fleshy sort of color going on. Darker. That. And almost a little purpley. I don't want to get too caught up with this because every time I look at this photo, I see different colors. It's a problem I have. Okay, there's a little bit of a blue gray down there. There's a little bit of a shadowy something. Then here's like a fleshy sort of color. Right? Place that on there. See how much cooler that is. You would think, well, this is a warm color. It looks like skin, right? It's very cool compared to that orange. It almost looks great. But kind of what I'm seeing. There, like that just a tad. Happens. And top logically will be a little cooler because it's got light reflected. It's maybe a purpley pink, dark.
It kind of has a Batman thing going there with the face, like around his eyes.
Oh, like a Batman mask. Bat cow. So yeah, I like that little purpley blue, that little purpley pink I put up there, added to the haze of blue almost. That look right there. Sometimes you learn to just like put little hints of color in places. It's just kind of like just a little dot. And then what's going through the middle might be fine. I think it still needs a little bit of pink. Up top, it's gonna be this one. See some like here. There we go. That's nice. Here go. Okay. Over there it's warmer, but just to balance it, I'm gonna put a little bit of that there too. Okay, and then the highlights, which maybe I'll just go ahead and get on there something warm and pale. This edge is light. This. So, you know, that like might be enough there for the nose. I still have a lot of the underpainting showing through using, you know, that orangey color that's right there in the middle. That's just underpainting. Back up now and
do you think about the anatomy or like, background knowledge that you might have about the animals and their mouths and muzzles and everything? Or do you just kind of just go by, right brain it, what you're seeing and that kind of method?
Yeah, I've never like recreated the skull of a cow. Like you have to do that with the human skull, and I've drawn the human skull in college and art classes and stuff. Never done that with a cow. I'm just basically relying on the photos that I've seen. My practice with actually drawing, working from photos.
Good question.
Yeah, so that would be interesting though.
Yeah, let us know how it goes.
I mean, if I had a cow skull, that would make an awesome still life subject. That would be really cool. I know another artist that actually, Annalisa Leal, has a bunch of cow skulls on a wall that got into the IAPS exhibit, a web show.
Wow.
That I just looked at. Somebody else from the society got something in too. But congratulations if you're here.
Yeah, somebody did. Oh, Lorianne, that's in York.
Yeah.
And I think there was someone else also.
Yeah.
So it was somebody else whose name I didn't recognize from Maryland Pastel Society.
Oh,
That got in. Huh? Okay. What I'm gonna do next is work a little bit on the brown coat. I'm kind of seeing some oddness here that didn't get enough of this dark. I'm through here a bit. Yes. And I'm sort of seeing some red. I really love putting red, like a deep, rich, pure red in a brown coat in the areas that are in between the light and the shadow. Here's some knowledge for you. The area of the greatest intensity of color is always going to be right between the light and the shadow, right where the light meets the shadow. Now, in some areas, like a fuzzy animal, that can be lots of places and intermixes because fur's going every which way, and a lot of it's catching light and shadow at the same time. But you can really see that when you pump up your intensity of color on a subject that's in direct, bright sunlight. So that the brightest area is like right where the highlight comes around, starts to go into the shadow, right there on that edge is where the purest color is, brightest color is. And I just love utilizing that knowledge, even if I can't really see it very well. I love just adding the brightness in those bits because it really adds a lot of vibrancy to a painting. And red and brown fur really goes nicely.
So that is red into the darker areas, just showing medium values as well.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. I mean, you can come up and look. I added some up through here because I'm kind of see on in photos the warmest part of that fur is like right there in that patch on either side of that shadow. So I'm putting this in there, and then when I get to over here, I'm going to actually use that with like blues or something. I'm not really sure yet if that's going to work or not, but I'm going to try something. And red. These parts are getting more sunlight. So like I'm not going to put the red way over here in the deep part of the shadow because I don't see it. But these areas that are like getting both right between the light and the shadow, that's where you kind of see the most intensity. Just like getting little hints. Plus, I think some of these lines like this make the painting more interesting if you look really close up at it. Okay, then there's something about this fur does have a little bit of greenish in it. I kind of put some green in there in the shadows, but I'm seeing some right here. And how I determine that is when I'm squinting at the photo and then I'm looking at my painting and I'm comparing what's where. Like, how is this still different than this? Like, where do I need to push it? I do see something that compared to this section, this is more greenish than this. Like, they're both browns, but they're all kinds of browns. You know, like there's brown, you know, there's a greenish brown versus reddish brown. You know, so that's kind of what I'm seeing here. You know, this is a reddish brown, but this is more greenish brown compared to that. So when you see those types of differences, then that's when you know where to push your color and what color to use. You know, right? So about the same value as that terracotta, so that might work here. And scientifically it works because the green, this part of the cow is facing mostly downward. So it's catching that reflected light from the grass. So it makes sense right there that this would have a little more green in it. So I'm just gonna do this. A bit of dark like right here. Besides there. Sometimes the actual like direction and flow of the fur, sometimes it's not that important because the fur can change, but sometimes it is important. And if you're not familiar enough with an animal to tell the difference, best just to go with the photo. Unless there's something about the photo that looks really weird. And you've all probably, if you ever work from photos, you know what I'm talking about. You know, don't copy something in the photo just because it's in the photo. If you look at it and you're like, what is that? You don't know what something is? Just spit it out. Okay, so there's some greenishness to this part. Maybe even over here. And I'm working very light pressure over here because it's dark, it's a darker area. And maybe with the eyelash, it's got a nice little eyelash on it. So it's kind of that value. On the bottom would have green bouncing up over here also. Just a little bit running through here, although I don't see as much green on this side of the coat. I'm kind of trying to work up to where I'm going to put like those cooler highlights coming through. I'm really not sure how they're going to look on top of that orangey. We'll see. I might find out that I should have made that a darker underpainting tone right there instead of the light. But, let's see.
So Rita, you said that a lot of times you enhance the photo. Did you enhance that photo?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty natural.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, good question because I have let's see, photo progress. Okay, I have several folders of photo editing. Photo editing progress. What is this one? This looks like one photo. You know what? I have to. These are not downloaded. I'll get back on the. Well, ask me that again. Ask me that again later.
Okay.
It seems I have to get back on the Wi-Fi in order for those photos to show up.
Oh,
This is in my OneDrive. So, but I have some folders of images that I'm showing the progression of what I did to that photo
Oh,
to come up with the reference, the final reference image that I want to paint from. And I do, sometimes I do quite a bit of editing to an image to get it to look how I want it. See, because like I say, my brain wants to just copy the photo. So the easiest way for me to then make a nice painting is to get that photo to look all as close as possible to how I want the painting to look. Then it makes it easy for me to paint from it. Yeah. So that might be enough for that right now. I'm going to go back into the whites here. There's about these shadows. Put some of this here. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit greener, kind of. And I'm seeing some of these values of these shadows start to get a little lighter through here. No, I think I have to go. I have to take this one step lighter than that. Maybe not that intense. Step lighter. Maybe this one. It's a little bit of a greener blue. This was super intense. It's what I have in the sky. I don't really want that much intensity in that part of those little leftover shadows before it goes to the light. So I'm just going to use this one. See how that looks. I think that'll be nice. Seeing that sort of value here, here. Here. So now I'm starting to get the little lines of color going, because these areas are getting smaller and I want to retain like the shadow shapes that I had. Some scratchy part on here. Pointing here too, because there's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I don't want to I don't want to try to draw every hair up here and where it's going. It doesn't matter. I just want to get the gist of it. And the lights and shadows like in a good place. I need to find a lighter shade of that green. This. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, that's nice. So I'm slowly working around all the lighter and lighter tones that are going up before I get to my final highlight once again that I'm going to get in there, that I'm going to get in these places. But then I'll have those subtly darker shadows in there that I won't have to put those on top of the white, putting the white on top of those. And the farther away you get from a face, so I almost think I should have done more larger strokes for some of this stuff. See how that looks kind of neat, just to put a little square block shape. Goes. Pretty cool. Okay. Now let me go ahead and just go ahead and get. This is a blue earth. Normally I use my Diane Townsend Terra Jess for the final highlights, but this is such a perfect shade, and I can get some good strokes out of that piece.
What is this, Rita?
It's a blue earth, and it's like broken in half. So and it's fairly fresh, so it has like some nice crisp sides and edges. Whereas my Diane Townsend is kind of like all I don't know.
Do you ever use the, I know you use the, am I saying this word? Jess. But do you ever use the other ones?
Oh, like the soft form? I don't
Yeah.
like, I think it's too soft. I have an iridescent set, metallics set of the soft form. I swear, like 1.5 of them are just complete dust. Cause it's just like I touched one to pull it out and it's like disintegrated into dust.
So did Diane Thompson.
Yeah, the soft form. The iridescent. It's the only set I have. So maybe it has something to do with the composition of the iridescent pastel. I don't know, but I like the Terra Jess, and the thin line is the same formula as the Terra Jess, but just get the Terra Jess because I think you get more pastel for the money.
Since they're rounded and
Yeah, they're
sometimes
like bigger.
one edge, like right now.
Yeah, because I
Could
just
you
break it
just
up. Like here's half of a Terra Jess.
Yeah, could you cut it in half and then?
I just break it.
Yeah, it'll give you
Take
that.
Take the size and just break it. Breaks fine. Yeah. Actually, no, I'm not going to use that. It's a different kind of soft. I am going to use the Terra Jess. It's pale yellow white, and get things in. Now for this, for the final highlights, I am getting my rag handy, and I'm going to like wipe it off on the rag in between strokes, between most of the strokes, because I don't want to pick up a color and then have it go into the middle of the next stroke. That's like not very attractive. You want to keep your strokes clean. And if it's just dabbing it a little bit. And then after this, I'll have the highlights on the dark fur left. Something over here that's catching some light. And then there's some highlight on the brown fur that's coming up that will hopefully obscure some of that dark green that got on there. Trying not to blow on it, okay? That's
I saw you.
my alternative. So to take the breath.
I did.
Not let it out. So.
I think you woke everyone on Zoom up.
Yeah.
It's like
You can knock it back, it kind of gets the loose dust up. I think this, there's something about that lower lip, I think that needs something a little bit, I don't know. Just less. Size. Highlight my colors. Might actually be a little bit in the wrong place, but maybe it works anyway. Oh. Yeah.
Rita,
Uh-huh.
did you wait until you finished to name your work?
Usually, yeah. Usually I do wait. Only occasionally, like if I've spent some considerable time on a composition for like something, usually like figurative work or maybe a large just cow painting, and I have the photo and I know what I'm going to do with it, and sometimes I'll have a title like when I see a photo and I know I want to paint it and this is how I want to paint it. Sometimes I'll be like, and this is what I'm going to title it. But usually I wait until it's done. And just at some point in the painting process, the title will come to me. Or sometimes I'll have to actually just like struggle through like writing down stream of consciousness of like, what does this painting mean to me? Like, what's the meaning of this? And I'll just write down words. And then I have to go to thesaurus.com and look up synonyms for these words that sound good together, you know, and it's
It's a lot of work.
It's research, but it's important, you know. Got some little curlies up there. These ears can just get like a stroke like that, stroke like this. It's actually a lot looser than I would normally do on this size. How much time do I have? I hope I still have time to get the last highlight.
Oh, actually, we really need to start wrapping.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
10 minutes.
So the highlights, these highlights here all have to be almost as light as these, and they have to be lighter than this. This is shadow, and this is light. So I have to pick a pastel that's gonna go on here and be lighter. The strokes have to be lighter than that. So that's my challenge for the logic of the shadow tones and highlights. So I've got some of this, I have over there, some of that. So maybe this one. Okay, this is just like a greenish gray white sort of. I don't want anything too intense because so I want to let some of this other stuff show through and let's see what this looks like. And putting it on like loosely, slightly, because that's what happens with the dark fur over here. This, you know, you look at that in the photo and it does not look nearly as light as this because it's a mixture of, probably I'm using colors too light, because it's a mixture of the highlight and the shadow furs. So, okay, you get to see me best. You get to see me like correct. Where's my
What you need?
brush? Work up. It's like a little eraser brush kind of. Oh, here it is. Okay. I have a little eraser brush that's a sawed off flat. And it's so super stiff and it's short. And use this. And I'm gonna knock off that white. It's coming out on top of those darks that was just too light. It's just too light. Down here. On top of those darks. I'm gonna, instead of using my scientific knowledge, just gonna go with what I think the photo looks like. Then I'm gonna do a little bit of wet. This is water on a rag. Watch this. Just picks that up. Just dab it instead of rubbing it. It pretty much just like picks up what the last color you put down, and it does kind of pick up the colors that are underneath a little bit. But if you've got dark colors doing this, it really just like it blends in with all those other dark colors, and it looks fine then after that. So you know, it's a little bit blotchy, but it's the shadow parts. It's not gonna matter. And then I'm gonna pick something that's not quite as dark. Or something. Maybe this one. Kind of yellow greenish. Maybe I should go more bluish. Because maybe I'll do this one. Maybe something I already have in there. Sometimes you have to just try stuff, you know. So how I paint is like I don't remember everything, like every color that works on every other color and every situation. So I need to remember all that. And that's also okay. This is the same color I just pulled out of here, but I do notice that on top of some of this bits, there's a little highlight under that eye right there, and there's a little like. Some lights coming off of here. See that? Nice. And I'm pressing lightly. That I can do the eyelash over here. Oh yeah, there we go. Nice. And then for over here, maybe I'll just do like. A little darker. Yeah, I just needed to make that a little what? I'm gonna try a little bit more of this. Okay, dark undertone. Dark undertone instead. I'm just like going on instinct here and making this up. Like that. Maybe that was just a little too bright. Of underpainting, undertone, or too orange. You just don't do that. And this. That's precious to that. Okay, now I'm gonna throw in something. Maybe if this was too dark and this was too light, I just need something in between those two. I'm gonna try this one. It's really soft. So I don't choose like hard, I don't choose the order of like hard to soft or anything like that. I go with the color that I think is gonna work. So what's happening now is I have a really soft pastel on top of some other soft pastel. So my touch is like really super light right now. And just trying to make sure that this is coming across with a value that's gonna work and make you see those highlights sitting on that curve. First I went with a glazing And then I'm going back and putting in some lines. Furs going. You know, there's probably lots of different options that could be used for this color. But since it's not like, it's the face you're gonna look at. This is just the side of the cow. It just needs to be like believable as far as that shape goes. And here it's actually warmer, so maybe I'll find something almost like this that's a little warmer. Maybe this one? Let's try this one. Yeah. Oh, wait. Actually, that intensity will stand a little bit of this, like an orange, brown fur, kind of accompany that red. See a piece of it there. Some up there. I like it around these edges of ears. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of warm. I don't really see this over here inside, but because the fur is so warm right here, it wouldn't hurt to kind of make it hint at a little bit of warmth over here as well. Okay, so lastly, I like a little bit of pink. I have a theory about pink and the distant grasses that shared in the workshops. Some of this green, have this blue transition to green because skies do kind of get more yellowy towards the horizons. Less intense blue. Lighter green here. Have this green anywhere in the animal. Maybe I can add it. Let's see. Let's put it over here first because I like this color. And you know, I learned that reasoning. I'm using this because I like this color. And I learned that from Casey Klon. He did his opening demo for us in New Braunfels years ago. It was this landscape of like trees and a glade or whatever. If anybody ever seen him like do a demo,
No.
he doesn't use any references. It just goes off of like memory. Well, if you've seen his work, it's all like semi-abstract anyway. I mean, no photo is gonna like translate into what he paints. But he was painting these trees, and partway through, he's like, okay, I'm gonna put some of this blue right here because I really like this blue. And it just about blue. It was like in the background behind the trees, kind of over here on one side. Really bright, beautiful blue. I was just like just the thought that it's okay to use a color for no other reasons that you like that color. Okay. I mean, okay, this is green, it goes with grass, you know, but you know, it's the only place, maybe I can put some sky. See, I love this green mixed in with this blue. And this is when I start to get a little, you know, like fun with my strokes. And maybe some of these bits can have that green in them, in between the light and the shadow. A bit of that might look fun. There. As long as the value is right, you know. That works. And then I still feel like this is kind of too warm right here, so I'm gonna add another sort of green in there, just kind of as a filler. Something like this.
It works.
And I'm trying to like target mostly in between. Like I don't want to obscure all the other colors I have in here already. So I'm just kind of like going in between these, targeting. That's kind of an intense green. Maybe it needs more or something that will neutralize some, playing some peachy something or other in here. That's the red in this is going to help neutralize that green, push it back because that green was just a little too intense. When I want this to be the brightest part, so I laid all those bright greens in there, and now I'm neutralizing. So those are the situations where you have to just listen to your painting. I mean, sure, I might have painted that green. I didn't, but I might have painted that green, or somebody else, somebody less experienced might paint that green because they see that green in the grass right there.
Mhm.
That's not a reason to use that green.
Mhm.
I used it because I like the green, but now I'm neutralizing it. This is too strong of a color, and it detracted from the face. So, so I'm just neutralizing that green a bit with this peachy color. So maybe I can just do this. And that's a lighter value right here. I just like doing this light. I'm sorry, I'm going overtime, but I like doing a lighter value, like right there between around the horizon, between the sky and the grass. It's just like really shows more distance. And
Joyce, atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective.
something like that.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
And you know, sorry, I'm sorry. I have to. The warm brown fur is too warm. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this blue. I'm gonna go like this. It's a Rembrandt. I'm not even looking at the photo right now. I just want to cool off the shadowed parts of this fur because I have warm light and cool shadow here on the face, but I don't have cool shadow in the dark fur. So I'm just using this blue. It's just a blue, but it's a Rembrandt, so it's nice and hard pastel. So it'll glaze. It won't like disturb too much of the underlaying colors. It'll just like lay down on top of it. And I want to do this, and you'll see already it's like cooling it. What this does is it makes those highlights look warmer by comparison. Just saying kind of messy, but I don't know.
She looks like she has an attitude.
Yeah, it's a he. Actually.
Oh, he has an attitude. Well, that's why she looks like she has an attitude. But she's a he. Right. I missed that
Yeah,
part.
coolness added. So now the temperatures work better.
Yeah, I would think.
Just use black. I have a lot of dark in here.
Wow.